Hey there. It's Nikolai, Justin, and what I'm doing now is a little different from what I was normally doing. I was normally doing Orthodox videos, but this is a really short, somewhat simple crash course tutorial on DSLR photography, like super basic. Like if you know absolutely nothing about photography at all, this is for you. So this is probably gonna work. It's probably not gonna work. We'll see. To start right off, I'm gonna use my Nikon D3100 as a model. Basically, with DSLR photography, and for those of you that don't know what that means, it means digital single lens reflex photography, which basically means that inside here you'll see a mirror. That's one mirror, and basically how this works is light comes through the lens into this mirror, you know, and it bounces in there and out through here so you can see what you're looking at. And so you use this mirror and the viewfinder of the lens to focus everything, and then when you take a picture, hold on, let me show you. It'll do that. It'll the mirror lifts up and it exposes the sensor, which records the light, giving you your image. Right now, essentially, the quickest way to talk about what happens with these, the buttons and everything. A lot of DSLR cameras will look like this. They'll have buttons something like this. Canon, Nikon, they usually have something like this, where they have dials, preset dials, to show you what everything does. It has everything from let me show you. From, wait a minute, automatic. Let it focus. To no flash. To portrait, landscape, macro or up close. That's kids or people, I think. It's upside down. Yeah. Kids, sport, macro, up close, and that's night photography. This is manual, means everything's fully automatic, means everything you choose, you set all the settings. Aperture priority, should probably not be stupid and turn it up like that. Aperture priority, there we go. So where you adjust the aperture, and I'll explain aperture in a minute. Shutter priority, where you adjust the shutter speed, and I'll explain that in a minute. And program, which lets you adjust things like ISO and whatnot, and then the camera adjusts everything, and I'll explain that in a minute. And also the D3100 and some other Nikon and cameras come with this. It's a guide mode, which lets you select what you like. If you're not sure and you just picked up the camera, it'll let you select through some options, and it'll kind of guide you through taking the image you want to take. Now, because I was asked a question on photography by a friend that has to do a low light photo shoot at a jazz big band performance. And so I'll basically today explain how you do that. So to run you through it, there are a lot of ways that you can take you can do a photo shoot at a concert, but one easy way to kind of run through it. First off, let me show you. There are a couple things to figure out when you try to take a picture, and it's basically the easiest way to describe photography and trying to balance out everything is you're trying to have a balance between shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and you're trying to balance all these different things out, focal length and all that, to tell a story with your image, because photography means to write with light, and so basically you're trying to, you know, capture something and tell an effective story. Now I'm going to show you like this. Hold on. If you want to take, for example, a low light shot, if you're in a theater and you really want to take, you know, a shot of something, but you're not exactly sure what to set your camera to, I'll show you in a minute. Hold on, I have to reset this because this camera has a feature on it where it gives you a graphic. Yeah. Okay. This right here, this big yellow circle represents your aperture, and the aperture is basically how wide the lens is. I'll show you with a more concrete example. This is an old Pentax K1000 film camera. Now, all lenses have apertures, right? And the aperture is, you see that little hole? That hole right there is the aperture. It's how wide or how narrow your lens is open, right? Hold on. So the wider your aperture, more light comes in, and the quicker it takes to take a picture. Now, the smaller it is, the less light comes through and the more time it takes to take a picture. Say for example, you have it set to this, which is f2.f2, as an aperture of 2. It'll take you, say for example, 1/30th of a second to take a picture, but because you have so much light coming through. But say you stop it down, you close it to that, it'll take you about 15 seconds because the light needs more time to collect to equal the same image. That being said, if you're in a low light situation, theater, nighttime, the thing you want to do is you want to always have a wide aperture. You want to have a very wide aperture like this, you know. Now the smaller you have it, you see, the longer it takes. You see right now it's at 22 and it says 1.6, 1.3 seconds, but if you go to 6.3, it's 1/15 of a second. It's a lot faster because you're letting in more light. Another thing to consider, and for most beginners, your camera can automatically do these things for you, so you don't need to really worry about it right now. It just, I'm just trying to explain it as best as I can, so you'll kind of know what happens in case you want to change any of it. Another thing to consider is shutter priority, or shutter speed. And your shutter speed is basically how fast it takes this mirror to open and close. A really fast shutter speed would be like this. That's 1/300. That's really fast, right? But a slow shutter speed would be something like, this. And that is, 1/6 of a second, right? So again, shutter speed is how fast it takes for the mirror on your camera to open and close to capture your image. And aperture is how wide your camera opens and how much light can enter your camera. Like try and watch for a second. Those two things are really important, shutter speed and aperture. Another thing that you want to think about is your ISO, which is that right there, ISO. And basically what your ISO does is that it compensates for, say you have your aperture up all the way. This is as wide as it'll go and you can't do anymore, right? And you have your shutter speed as slow as you can make it without it being too shaky, right? So you use ISO. Your ISO will make your camera be able to your camera will be able to capture light a lot better at a higher number. Say for example, you take a picture that's at ISO 200, which is a low number, right? You get this. This is ISO 200. And then say you get ISO 3200, which is this. This is ISO 200, ISO 3200. And everything else is the same. Shutter speed's the same, aperture's the same. The ISO is different. So you use ISO, you make the ISO higher when you're in a low light situation. See now? It's 3200. But earlier it was, it's really weird for me to do things like, back and forth. It was 800. And so I guess to sum up this really horrible explanation is if you're starting to do photography and you don't know any photography words or terms, I guess right now the most important or the most often used are shutter speed, aperture, and in many cases ISO. Right? And if you understand the shutter speed, what it means and what it does, the aperture, what it means and what it does, and the ISO, what it means and what it does, then you'll be able to better understand what you're doing when you go out and shoot. You know, you'll kind of start to get it easier or quicker, and it won't be so confusing. Real quick, before I go, if you go out and you want to shoot at a theater, I highly recommend you use a tripod. Always have a tripod, like, as a backup if you're going to do low light things or shots that require extended periods of time, because if you hold it for too long, you'll shake and that can mess up your image, especially if you have to do low light. And I recommend a high ISO, like 1600, but nothing above that, like, well, no, like 1600 or 3200. And because that way you can capture light in dark places, but it won't give you a really grainy picture. I also suggest have your aperture up all the way. Set it all the way as high as it'll go, as open as it'll go. And then depending on the nature of the event, like if it's like a big band concert, you probably, given that type of lighting, you probably want to use between 1/13 of a second and maybe 1/80th of a second, depending. But if you're doing it for the first time and you're nervous, don't forget that your camera has these very handy settings just for this reason. And so I recommend, if you're doing it for the first time and you're really like nervous and you don't want to mess it up, try the automatic setting, or the because many cameras will have a night setting. Try the night setting. Those would help. Essentially, if you're doing this for the first time and you don't know what you're doing, use the automatic settings that your camera has. But you know, if you want to learn more and you're just starting out, but you plan to use photography later on in life, or you know, as a career or something, then I suggest eventually learning about these more advanced settings. But yeah, that's my really fumbled, bad attempt at explaining photography on a basic level. I hope you learned something, or hell, I hope you could understand what I was saying, and I hope you liked it. You know, hopefully I'll make more. So y'all take care.